Incoming message coming from the 588.
Good morning, recruits. Welcome to hell.
This is basic training. No one's supposed to die.
Wing Women is a semi-historical actual play podcast.
Have you pissed anyone off recently?
No one I can think of. While I run through the bulleted indexed list of people we've pissed off in the last couple of days.
They endure discrimination from their male counterparts.
All of your beds have been carried out of the nurse's station and placed in the middle of the jogging track.
I don't think it was Ivan. He's weak.
Against this bitter setting, our four motley heroines gain the chance to experience queer joy, gender euphoria, and equality for the first and perhaps the only time in their lives.
How obvious am I being?
See, I've kind of always thought that there is a level to some of us in this barracks that's visible.
Have you been using the word shenanigans?
I've been experimenting.
Where did you learn that word?
Until the next mission, this is us, signing off.
In the criminal justice system, TTRPGs are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the players, who play the games, and the rules lawyers, who prosecute the game masters. These are their stories.
All rise. Please rise as we welcome the Honorable Rio Faust. Judge, please take a seat.
No, I'm standing, because we're all standing. Sorry, it's the bailiff's first day. Everyone in attending, it's I, your risen honorable judge, Rio Dread Faust. This is the case of an unnecessary rules changing by Hasbro. Who's defending Hasbro in this heinous case of manipulation of the written word?
That would be me, Your Honor. Shade, the shill shepherd.
All right. And I should say everyone in this court is impartial, and we will judge accordingly. And the right and goodly defense of rules as written previously.
Yeah, Your Honor, yes, the prosecution, you mean? Yes. It is Franco, what's a really southern last name? Franco Alvarado.
Yeah, that is pretty southern.
That is, yeah, it's about as south as you can get. I'm here representing, I'm representing the players, the people who are clamoring about this rules change, Your Honor. And if I may, just say I love how unbiased you are, and I think I'm gonna get a really good. I think we're gonna have a really fair and impartial thing going on here.
Yeah, thank you so much for that.
Your Honor.
2 points to the prosecution.
Thank you. I hope you appreciate, as a fellow Southern man, this foghorn leghorn impersonation.
It's really great. I'm enjoying it a lot. I hope it sticks around.
We'll see.
All right, you may all be seated.
Right, and Shade, you're from Philadelphia, right? A Yankee state? A Yankeedom?
I'm not, but sure, today I am.
It starts with a P, right? One of the P states.
No.
One of the P states?
Your Honor, that was a previous case.
Name a state right now, Rio, that starts with P.
Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
wait, sorry. No. We're going to blast you for a second, Franco. Did you forget the Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I did. I'm a Southern man, and Yankee states don't exist to me. I did forget about Pennsylvania. You're right.
Oh, damn.
Listen, I'm not from here. It's okay.
I'm from here originally, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not
It's all good.
For all those listening at home, today we will be discussing the old 5e rules versus the new 1D&D/new D&D rules and talk about their differences. So why don't we just get that
Bailiff,
started?
are you
Judge,
mocking the prosecutor's accent?
How dare you,
maybe a little bit.
Proud Southern gentleman.
Your Honor, who do you wish to hear from first to give some opening statements about what the
what they want to talk about today.
Yeah, let's hear from Franco, and then if we have time, we'll let. We'll let
My
Shane
favorite
say
part
something.
about this bit is Franco doesn't even fucking like 5e.
Yeah, am I defending 5th
How
edition,
dare
or,
you.
or am I just trashing the new rules?
Well,
can
we're
say.
gonna
Whichever
kind of
one
be,
you
we're
want.
gonna be we're gonna kind of be talking about all of it. So, Franco, you're just basically coming from the idea that like why do this update? Is the update,
Is the update chill? I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I do declare that I think the rules changes are pretty good. If you want to keep playing 5th edition or whatever, I guess you could use them. I decided at my table that we're not going to use them, except I did just make an update that we are going to use one of them, and it's the new exhaustion rules. I literally just did it as I was looking over the rules. And I was like, yeah, I'll change the exhaustion rules. Those were stupid before. Yeah, that's the main one. There's a few things. I think there was a tirade that I went on in the Patreon episode where I talked about what sucked about it. And I don't remember exactly what I said. I could list some of those. And then it's the rules are you can use them if you want. I want to say that I don't know how well they play tested them because the playtest period was so short. Also, this sort of notion that they are somehow backwards compatible, I don't quite buy it. It's sort of did you really try that out? Did you try that out with every combination? Did you, blah, blah, blah. And then, there's just going to be a lot of situations where how are you going to throw the DMs on that? How are you going to throw the DMs into that sort of sticky morass, and, not give them support for it. So not coming out with a DMG to be hey, that thing we said about backwards compatibility, here's how you deal with it, and then here's why we think it works, and all that stuff. It's there's not a lot of help, I think. And then obviously the recent this is today is September 24th 2024, Your Honor, and there's also the leaked thing at the Goldman Sachs thing where the guy was oh yeah, we're making AI DMs or whatever. So it's kind of what's the DMG for anyway?
Yeah, that's all very well said. Shade, why don't you give the full-throated sort of...
Hey, bailiff, you are stepping
Sorry,
above
I'm
your
so
station
sorry, Your Honor. I'm just so
right now.
after
sit down.
You're so right. You're so right. Now
Back
sit down.
the hell up.
Wow.
Defense, you may rise. Opening statements.
Address the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I'm here really today to talk about why these rules changes are worth your time. Why one might have an interest in this. I'm not here to defend Hasbro as a company because, let's be honest, they're indefensible. Not here to approve any use of AI because I think that lacks intelligence.
Wow, what a zinger.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Plus one to the defense.
Thank you. And I am here though to really just speak to a single book that has come out. And really sing a few praises, point out a few things, and talk a little bit to the backwards compatibility from my limited
I can't wait to
review.
hear this, ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
And I'll make no what's the word I want? Make no secret of it, or it is no secret. I tend to like myself some 5e, and I tend to be in the camp that, you know what? Yeah, shock gasp. That you could just figure it out, and it's gonna be okay because all TTRPGs at the end of the day are just.
Have I got a response to that specific statement?
Oh, interesting. Friends around a table agreeing on some shared rules.
I've never once agreed with anyone in any room ever. How would you expect me to play this one D&D?
That's how he became a judge.
Your Honor, I feel that that's entrapment.
Objection.
Well, it isn't. Sustained.
Objection. I forget what sustained means.
It means I have allowed your objection.
Tight. Thank you. It's my first day. Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I think there's a jury. I'm not sure.
This is civil court.
I feel like maybe
It's actually arbitration.
Yeah, it's actually arbitration. We're just in a boardroom. The bailiff's here. He's fucking strapped, and we're like, "What the fuck is this guy here?" Now, the defense has sort of laid out this situation wherein you as players and DMs and stuff will figure out but can't this multi-billion-dollar corporation at least give you some guidance and rules and workable things? Shouldn't we expect that? Shouldn't we expect a workable game out of the box? We don't have to, and advice and handholds for the players and the DMs and stuff to.
I would argue that is there and was there.
I would say that it probably wasn't, but I don't have a ton of evidence with me right now because I am a little unprepared for this argument.
Literally your one job is collecting evidence.
Is to argue.
I gotta tell you.
So,
I withdraw my objection.
All right. Let's drop the court case. We'll return to them at the end of the episode. See how that's going.
I'm dropping nothing. I diminish no power.
We fucked up.
Rio is always the arbitration judge of this podcast, and let that be known to everybody. But I do want to, because Shade, you and I were talking while we played Space Marine 2 the other day, and I was actually sort of swayed to your side a little bit. There are things that I, as somebody who is just kind of absorbing it through osmosis, I have not gone and read through the whole new rule set or anything like that.
Which, can I just say real quick? Yeah. It's really weird that you put books in the pool with you.
Yeah.
It's
the best place. It's the best place to read.
I have a question, actually. Have any of us learned how to play D&D from reading the book?
Yes.
You have?
Oh, God, yeah.
This is a great question. I did not. Rio taught me from the ground up. I still don't know what I'm doing.
I will temper that. I mean, I already knew.
What is the biggest focus in this updated rule set? So, like, what were they going for when they did that?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. And I think that I think that Wizards and Hasbro have done a poor to mixed success on kind of illustrating this, but you know, it's been 50 years since D&D kind of came into being.
Since those very first esteemed rules that were so fucking hard to understand that nobody actually knew how to play the game. Your Honor.
You know, so they kind of wanted to celebrate that, but they also wanted to streamline. And I think that if you read the new 2024 Player's Handbook, they really did largely succeed in streamlining this game and creating it for a new generation of players. If you've never once played a TTRPG, you can pick this up and you'll go, "Oh, I get it." Like it's pretty easy to read.
I have a question, an objection, perhaps, maybe a leading question. How much do you think that sort of Hasbro and WoTC's lean into desire into to like, you know, like kind of like video gamify things, like the sort of like success of Baldur's Gate, and then like a lot of like the videos that I've seen too from whatever the fuck that guy's name is. I don't know any of the people's names.
Todd Kenrick is the guy who usually leads the interviews, and like then Jeremy Crawford is the primary rules guy, along with
some guy or whatever, some talking head, some whatever dude was talking about like, oh yeah, because of this thing that I tried to do in Baldur's Gate 3, we decided to change how the spell works in D&D. You know what I mean? And then sort of like thinking about how like 4E was sort of an attempt to capture like an MMO audience, right? Like, how much do you think is like, and then like the sort of the talk about the AI, how much do you think the simplification of and streamlining of these rules, like, you know, well structured as the PHP is, and, you know, as streamlined as these rules are, how much do you think that could be? I mean, it's sort of like asking you to read their minds, right? But it's sort of like how much do you think, based on what you've read compared to the 2014 rules, compared to those original rules, how much do you think like that has made it feel more video gamey? If that's like
I want to add a second line of questioning for the whole court. Bailiff, you can, if you feel like it, you can come back to the table.
Thank God, I can talk.
Woo! You can listen.
Wow.
So
okay, I'll get back into my box.
We're getting into a sort of a cross-genre crowd where you do have video gaming becoming more popular alongside tabletop gaming. And then I think you are seeing a lot more crossover of video games trying to incorporate tabletop elements and tabletop games trying to incorporate video game elements. Because I think you all have known that I've like deep dived into the cyberpunk world, playing the video games, and
that's next week's case, Your Honor.
Right. And I've been reading the books, and I'm like, oh, this is from the game. This is from the game. I've seen this. I've crossed that. And then in D&D, Baldur's Gate 3 is like, oh, these spells. Oh, they've changed this. They've done that.
Yeah.
How is it? Do you think it's a good or bad thing if they become sort of a saturation medium where these things become sort of interlinked, where you're like, oh, I play D&D video games, or I play D&D books, but they're sort of interchangeable, where you would understand the rules and how-tos of either element that you choose to engage with.
Yeah.
So I'll address both of these questions. So I will say, yes, obviously there is a desire to try and synergize with other products. I mean, at the end of the day, Hasbro's a fucking toy
Transformers fighting Gist.
Yeah, which it's small side note, guys, but I don't know if you know this. They were looking at Boston offices moving out of Rhode Island.
Ooh, let's go. Why? Let's do it. To hire me, of course. The worst enemy.
I saw it and I was like, ooh, they're either going to become a client of mine or I'm going to try and work for them. One of the two. So, and if my employers heard that, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere.
You can't wink at the camera on a podcast.
It's an audio medium.
Yeah, for everyone listening, I have been pulling at my suspenders this entire time.
Yes. Anywho, back to what I was saying. You want, as a company that has a fiduciary responsibility, you want to try and make as much money as you possibly can, and getting that saturation, Rio, I think, is in their misguided interests. And I say misguided because I think on one level, to an extent, it is awesome. Really, really great when you're able to go, okay, cool, the rule set fits inside this video game, and it fits inside of this, and look, we made a movie. Isn't it cool to see how like this kind of mirrors the moveset in some way, and or the rule set rather, and all of that's really great, except there should also still be plenty of room to kind of step outside of that, because you want to be able to tell other stories, engage with the content in other ways that shouldn't be limited to a rules.
I have a question based on that. You have inspired me to sort of think about this in a different way. Do you think
sure.
We all know here, ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, that Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition has tried to be everything for everyone, perhaps since 3rd edition, right? If you had your druthers, what type of game would Dungeons and Dragons be, based on the sort of neo-trad OC culture that now permeates in 5e? I personally would think it would be cool if it was this sort of like D&D is the Forgotten Realms. Like we're playing the Forgotten Realms TTRPG. This is the game, or we're playing the Spelljammer RPG, and then that's like and it has rules that are slightly tweaked from the Forgotten Realms, and it's sort of this engine rather than it being like take the Year Zero engine or the Into the Odd engine powered by the Apocalypse. These sort of families, the 5th edition engine could power these other properties in a way. I don't know. That could be interesting.
I would definitely prefer that than sort of the idea of campaign settings within Dungeons and Dragons, because it does get like bloated to me, it feels.
I feel like it's definitely a legacy of TSR as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think that's kind of how it functions now. If you look at all of the like supplement books that come out, it's a set of new monsters, a set of new spells, and a set of new feats, all that kind of stuff.
Right. The artificer shouldn't really be in certain campaigns.
Exactly, yeah. And so it's kind of and they kind of attach it to a setting release as well. Like when the Dragon Queen came out, it all, Dragonlance as a setting resurfaced and kind of attached itself to 5e, but it had its own way to play. Like some of the feats and the rule sets and classes and everything that they added in don't really make sense anywhere else, but it makes sense if you're a squire of whatever, you know what I mean? And same with like Strixhaven and all that kind of stuff, like with the schools of magic, like all of that makes sense within the setting, but not so much as a cohesive. So I think that's kind of how they were doing it already, but I do like the idea that it's almost like it's kind of like an expansion or DLC of a video game, which would make sense with the direction that they're going with, where it's like a completely new experience, but based and still feels familiar from the core setting that would be, Faerun or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I personally, me, I love Planescape. I just want to smash it all together. It's all one. And that's part of why like 5e appealed to me, is because it had multiverse stuff right in the player's handbook, right at the front of the DMG. And they've done it again here. In fact, they've really, so one of the big changes here with the new player handbook is they have stepped away from a setting. Now, I say that, I will caveat that there's kind of this idea that Greyhawk is kind of the default setting again. I mean,
what is
fine,
Greyhawk?
whatever, but like
everyone talks about Greyhawk in D&D.
Greyhawk is.
I've never seen books from it. I've never seen anything set.
It's the whole like lights in the darkness sort of thing of like low level civilization where it's just like these outposts and surrounded by wilderness that needs to be explored kind of thing. Is that right, Shade? I feel like that's what I remember.
I think it's AD&D era.
Yeah,
it's like very Gygaxian.
Very old too. So like a lot of the big names that from like Big B and Mordekainen and
Tasha too, right?
Actually, even Tasha, yeah, exactly. I mean, but all of them kind of like come from Greyhawk originally, and they were like player characters that became codified as like there were like 8 of. So this is a fun thing. We always kind of are like, oh, we have an 8-person group and blah blah blah. I'm pretty sure that there were 8 of these old central characters. So to me, 8's just like of course we have an 8-person group.
I think the 8-person group back then, because the rules, like the combat was so fast and deadly, is just like really different. I think like I don't know, do you think that anything in the PHB addressed the sort of, I don't know, common complaint that people have, like, and I don't know if you like, we've said this before, we've referred to combat as a slog. That is a really common refrain, even from people that love 5e. Do you think that this has addressed any of it? I don't, because we have the weapon mastery feats now. And that is going to add more and more roles and more like, how does this work exactly? When do I use this exactly? You know what I mean?
You know what? I mean, hey, that is a fantastic critique because I'm gonna say no, not even slightly. In
I don't
fact,
think they
if
think it's a
anything,
problem.
Yes, I agree. It probably did over like add to it because in addition to that, they added some more nuance on additional actions you can take, which they already existed.
This is the thing we were talking about with the influence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the thing with so like. For example, back in the day, back in the heyday of 2014's Player Handbook 5th edition, in the Player Handbook on Chapter 9 of 2014, it had actions in combat. You could attack, cast a spell, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, ready, search, use an object. Okay, pretty cool. In the new game, there's a few more things that you can do. So there is oh my gosh, just lost it. Actions. We have attack, dash, disengage, dodge, help, hide, influence. So they've now kind of like added this thing where you can try and essentially it's a skill check. You can deceive, intimidate, perform, persuade,
Riz test.
Yeah, Riz test. You can use magic, which is to cast a spell, use a magic item, or use a magical
I did like that
feature.
they added. I like that they made magic as an action because I think that sort of interacts with other rules. Because like a lot of times you'd be like, I want to counterspell this guy, and it's like that's a feature that it has. It's not a spell, like that type of thing.
There's also something that I think is really interesting is that they've taken all of the bits where people misunderstood the old rules and they were like, oh, people seem to really want to do this as an active action.
Yeah.
Like Shade, we were talking about perception. Like everyone misunderstands that rule where it's actually, you're never supposed to be like, I want to roll perception here. That doesn't actually.
You're never supposed to do that anyway.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. But people do that because it feels good to have some sort of like active control over like what's about to happen to you. And it does feel like the developers have taken a lot of that sort of player data and put it in. To Franco's point, I do think it's going to become a bit more of a slog because of it, because there are so many things that players have to call for. And I think that it's going to start kind of becoming a thing. And we experienced this in our group. And I'm sure lots of tables experience this where people kind of want to like retcon the last 10 seconds, but they're like, no. Well, like obviously I would have like tried to look around the room first or whatever, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I feel like in that way, it's a little strange. Honestly, I kind of wish what they had done is something a little bit more like what Mythcraft, friends of the pod, what Mythcraft did, and I've always thought this was really cool, is that you generate a certain amount of actions every time it becomes your turn. And so bigger spells and stuff like that just require more actions to use. So you have a bank that you're slowly generating.
Yeah, Pathfinder
and then you can use it however.
Pathfinder does something similar, I think. They have like action, like the action economy is like different, like action points or something like that. I think that that is better personally, because I think I guess like I remember when I first started DMing, I had a little chart that told me everything that you could do. It said like bonus action, reaction, action, move, dodge, like all this stuff, and everything sort of laid out. And I think that is complicated. I don't think it's simple, and I mean I think it's fine. This is a complicated game. That's why I'm like a stupid little small brain NSR boy, right? It's like rules light, please. Only 3 stats.
and on that note, why don't we head to a break, and when we come back, we can kind of talk about the difference between like how crunchy it is between the old edition and the new edition.
You've lived a sinner's life. Now you've died a sinner's death.
The first heartbreak is how good it felt to be enveloped in something that didn't hurt. I don't care if it was dark, it was still mine for a moment. I'm so tired.
What goes through your mind as you float through this day after day, night after night?
I should have done more.
I've suffered worse storms than this in my bloody sleep. Give me your all, I say! Come on!
Stay with me, Lord, because I am weak, and I need your strength. that I may not fall so often.
Starting November 4th on Game Master Monday, climb aboard the Worthy Mapple, sail the Stygian Sea, brave the depths of hell, and find salvation in our next Game Master Monday miniseries, Hell Whalers. Available everywhere you enjoy podcasts.
Welcome back, everyone. Court is in session. We return. Please silence your phones. Someone's going to jail today. Okay, so...
Wait, before you say whatever it was that you were going to say, because I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to talk about whatever I'm going to talk about right now. Because we were still on the actions. I want to talk about influence.
Sit the hell down.
I wanted to talk about the influence thing.
Sorry, guys. Let me get back in my bailiff box.
Because I think me and Shade were talking about this offline, but the influence action is interesting because it sort of highlights a rule that I think is either optional in the current DMG, which is like the only DMG that's out right now, right? But it basically brings back the sort of the quote unquote reaction roll from the older systems where you roll 2d6 and then that sort of determines the vibe of the creature, like how they feel towards you. Because you can use the influence action to move them from like indifferent to friendly, or from friendly to indifferent, or indifferent to hostile if you fail, right? So this sort of like disposition roll might also be helpful to be aware of. I mean, I think that's interesting that they're trying to fold that back in.
Yeah, I think that is definitely what they're trying to do. The thing that I'm kind of confused about, and this kind of goes back to what Franco was saying earlier, is like what identity they were trying to craft for this new edition of D&D, because it's taking a lot of like the stuff from the old games, which were very much viewed as sort of like more tactical, more had Franco and all that kind of stuff. But then Thaco, yeah. And then the fourth edition, it was like so simplified and like gamey that people were like,
so tactical,
MMO,
very tactical.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
like, this is just a war game kind of thing.
I mean, I think it really moved from that sort of the OD&D being kind of like people trying to figure out what it is, and I think that's what the culture was that emerged from it. And then when AD&D came out, everything was very codified by Gygax, and was like, he was like, I'm doing the whole game over again. This is going to be a war game again. And I think it was basically that up until, I don't know. I mean, like I'm sort of basing this on like my cursory knowledge of this type of stuff, right? Like the sort of historical stuff that I've looked into that has interested me about like the old ways that they used to play. But I think like OD&D and basic D&D, which was like a sort of interpretation of OD&D, of original D&D. And then like Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, that's where you get, I think that's where Thaco comes in, 3rd edition, very tactical, Pathfinder, crunchy,
a lot of math.
4E, very tactical, really fun. I think I really had fun when we played 4E, because it's like activate this power, and then like 5E tries
to... so easy to know what to do.
Yeah, and then 5E has this sort of in between
Franco.
vibe, right? Of like being like really crunchy sometimes and then very freeform other times.
And that's, I was actually going to say, Franco, that 4E, it was very tactical, but I would say it was not crunchy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, okay.
It was very, like, you had everything on cards. You basically, it's kind of like you're playing Pokemon in a sort of way where you're
it was
like
tight.
playing skills. Yeah. I mean, it's a great, if it was branded anything else, I think it would have been incredibly popular. The thing that I'm interested in, though, is that in the last 5 years, with the rise of actual play and all that kind of stuff in it as a storytelling and performance form, I really thought that they would try to lean into the more cinematic nature of the storytelling and maybe become a little bit more like that. But when we were talking, it doesn't seem like that was necessarily the case. What do you think about that when you read the new rules?
I mean, I think, to me, this... nothing in these rules feels especially crunchier to me. There's a little more guidance, but it feels, I look at it and I go, okay, cool, great. I have an idea of what I should roll as a player, or what I'm going to be asked to roll as a player. If I want to try and, get get the king to give me more money for this quest. If I want to try and convince the bear to go after easier.
I really like the menu of options. I think that's fine. To me, that doesn't read as crunch. The martial features reads to me as crunch. Like that. That's definitely crunch.
I do agree.
Really quick, I just want to cut in, and then Shade, I want to throw it back to you to respond to that. But to me, and it just struck me for like the first time when I was hearing what you guys were just saying, and you were like, oh, this is the menu of options. And I was like, oh my God, it's because of the AI GM stuff. Like you're going to be able to all be around a thing, and you are going to pull down and hit an influence option,
oh my God,
which
you're so
before was
right.
like you just talking to your DM and saying like,
and then
oh
the
yeah, like I want
dispositions,
to try to do this. Yeah. Like I don't know. I'm just saying like this is obviously me being cynical, but it does feel very much like that. I was like, oh my God, it's kind of like a Pokemon game.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, but I would argue that every fucking TTRPG already does that. The difference is your computer is.
I think that
like,
these rules streamline that to an extent that an AI or something could interpret that.
Yeah,
because like
previously
the
agree.
menu, because this is I'm looking at it now. It's a table. I don't think the actions were laid out in a table like that before. Like I think basically like the structure of the rules I think has been reformed so that it is more, and I think to like the benefit of tables, it will be easier to sort of like go to something and like whatever, but that also makes it easier for an AI DM to do that too.
Yeah, which I think that like for me, the only reason why I say this, Shade, and again, this is just speculation. Who knows what they're going to try to do?
Course.
But when I hear that, like for an example, like trying to convince the king to give you an extra bit of gold before you head out. Before, what that would be was, my barbarian like stares at the king, and like what sense do I get from the king? Does he seem like a little squeamish? And then you're like, oh, like okay, I'm gonna like try to throw my weight around, and then you actually have a dialogue with your GM. It's the role playing section of it, and now what you can do, if this was the way you wanted to do it, you could say, oh, I think my barbarian, I'm going to use my action on my turn, guys, and I'm going to try to influence the king. I select the influence box. The AI then processes that, sees what the king does. It cross references by the disposition and maybe like your charisma score, your whatever it is.
You make a check.
It spits back. Yeah, it spits back a result for you, and that's just like that's what it could be. I again, who knows? But that's what it kind of sounded like to me in that moment when you guys were talking about it. It never occurred to me before, so I want to push it forward.
It's gonna have to be really fucking smart to be like, influence me to do what? Like to give you more money, to give you a knighthood? Like
it could just be a success failure thing. Like it could just be like, guys, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll the thing. The AI says you have influenced the king, and it's like, great. Then like we get extra resources or whatever. Like
it
that
just
could be
decides what it wants to give you.
Yeah. I mean, I've played solo D&D. I've played DM-less games. Guess what?
Why do you hate me? Permission to treat offenses hostile to everyone.
I don't think that's.
Wait, who are you asking permission for? You're the judge.
No, I'm giving permission.
Okay, great.
Permission is being granted to teach.
I guess we don't have any
defense studies.
We don't have any witnesses.
I mean, I don't hate you. I'm just saying I've played games that didn't have you in them.
And they were terrible.
Which, by the way, buddy, you're always welcome back at Thursdays.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that today. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to my RPG podcast. I haven't played RPGs in 4 months.
Hey, we all need
breaks.
a break sometimes. We all take breaks. That's life. But anyway, my point is like, yeah, all those terrible things, and I just like out the gate, AI sucks. I don't want it. I've literally am trying to kind of like fight any little bit of AI in the workplace that I can. That's not entirely
does suck, but sex bots. I don't think sex bots would be terrible inventions.
I mean, by definition, I assume they would suck too. Anyway,
wow. I don't think that's what the people come to us for.
No, I don't think
Phrasing.
I withdraw my statement. I withdraw my statement. I did not mean it that way.
anyway, all of that aside, as a book for a human, yes, this does make this a little simpler. And I think that that's fine. I think that we have to wait and see whether combat's really going to be longer or if there's any improvement. A few things that I do think, because we were talking, Franco, about it. Now you have these weapon mastery things, and there are all these special little things you get to do. Looking at this strictly from a player perspective, players are going to be hella more powerful.
Yeah.
More? They're already unkillable from level 10 on.
I hate to tell you, it's not going to be
There's like
better.
a thing that people kept sort of saying that it was like the creators were just sort of saying like, yeah, DMs are going to hate this. Like they kept like sort of using that phrasing too. And it's like, why do you, because they don't want us. They don't want us around. They want us replaced by robots.
So I have a thought on that I'm going to circle to, but
can I jump in real quick about the weapon mastery feats? Because we've actually on this podcast advocated for that sort of thing before.
Yeah, to differentiate.
I'm super
them,
excited about that thing. Yeah, me too. I really love the idea of having a bit more customizing, like the customization of a martial class, especially feels super lacking in later levels in 5e as it stands. I think that this is going to make it feel like a little bit more like my character. I have a great axe and I can cleave through a group of enemies and hurt them all and all that kind of stuff. I think that that's going to be really cool. I think that the thing that I do worry about is the challenge aspect, I guess. And before, I mean, it's all play style. A lot of people don't want to be challenged. They just want to tell a fun story with their friends, and that's totally cool. Yeah. I'm sometimes one of those people. But I also think that it is going to be hard for GMs unless they really we haven't seen monsters yet, correct?
This is exactly the point that I wanted to make. So we have gotten kind of like the smallest bit of insights into this, and I do wonder, because yes, right now it looks like players are going to hit a lot harder and they're going to be a lot harder to kill. And
did they change how proficiency bonuses work with challenge ratings? Are they aligning them to levels?
So I don't have a good answer for that. We don't have the GM,
we do.
GMG,
there is a section that I was looking at earlier that said that had like compared. It's like a list of CRs, and then the proficiencies, and then the levels in the CRs were equivalent as far as like the pluses that you get.
Can you share that book on Beyond without a subscription?
Yeah, it's already.
I mean, we all purchased it.
Right.
No, Rio was saying like just in general, like can one share that book on Beyond with other people in the way that you used to be able to pass the book? Is it still like
it's the same thing. I own everything that's on D&D Beyond because that's my hobby. And
because I was trying to read it and it kept trying to sell it to me, but I was like, but I know Shade.
Oh, this is one thing that I will say. They have been, because again, I own everything. They have been super hyper aggressive about how you access stuff, but you should be able to access it just as usual.
Yeah, I think I canceled my subscription, so maybe it's because I'm not a subscriber. They won't let me share.
But are you logged in? Okay.
Let's cut all of this part out.
Campaigns. Yeah.
No, I think part of it is interesting because I think that Beyond is going to be their economic engine going into the future, and I'm wondering how that's going to be a thing.
Yes, and Your Honor, permission to treat the PHB as hostile and as a physical object instead of a digital object.
Yeah. Granted.
There is a there's a YouTuber, and God, I thought I wrote down his name, but anyway, he is a book designer. And he was comparing how this PHB does not have page references. So like something comes up, right? And then on D&D Beyond, I can see if something comes up, it's linked. Great. Very useful. Very accessible. Mm-hmm. In the book, it is not linked. You have to go to the index. You have to go to the rules glossary, great points. Good job. But like there are no page numbers throughout the physical book that point you to different rules. And this is something that is very easy to do in InDesign as somebody who works in publishing, and something that other publishers do all the time, like other TTRPG publishers that are much smaller operations than Wizards.
So I appreciate that, because I know we were talking about it at another time. Because I don't have a physical copy, but I'm going to say that so I have a character that I redid with new rules. And if I go into that character, I can actually look at something real quick. Okay, so Bardic Inspiration, D12, free rules, page 59 on the digital thing. Expertise, I'm looking for something that says PHB real quick. Resilient from Bard, PHB 2024, page 206. It's in the digital. I have to assume that there's got to be something.
Can I ask
like that, right?
Can I ask a quick question? Like, is that
That's
on
wild.
Beyond, or is that in like the?
That's on Beyond.
So, but is that in Beyond, like in the character creator or like the character sheet viewer?
It's on my character sheet on Beyond.
Great,
It's wild to me that they would reference the page number of a physical book and online and not have any kind of reference inside of the physical book to try and...
Yeah, that is sort of what I gleaned from this video that I watched about it.
That's so wild.
And I think that there was even like sort of a statement about it from Wizards that they were like, it's too hard to do it.
Yeah, I know we did talk about that at one point, and that's just so wild to me.
Yeah, I think that they're just, it's all part of their sort of digital service, like a game as service model. I think that they're just trying to drive as many people towards doing Beyond as possible.
I think
so that
they
don't have to support.
A lot of it is like there's quite a few of them that are sort of like missed opportunity style types of things too, where it's sort of like you could have had it here. I think I don't know. I think it's interesting that they didn't, because I think they're just trying to push people towards the digital product.
Real quick, I want to jump in as we're coming to the end here. It's approaching the end of the episode. I want to very quickly talk about do three things. First, I want to have you guys talk about spells, because I heard that there's a big controversy around spells and I just don't really understand it. Would like to hear a little bit about that. And then I just want sort of closing statements, if you will, Franco, about what you as like representing players, what are you worried about? What are you still waiting for to like kind of ameliorate some fears? And then Shade, I would like for you to be like, what has got you the most excited about this new rule set from your cursory glance? And then we of course will come back to this topic when there's like the official full release of everything and it's more settled. But for now, this is where we will kind of leave it. So why don't we talk about spells real quick? What is the deal with spells in the new edition?
God, this bailiff is just all about business.
I'm sorry, I just come from a long line of judges.
Did you? Well, it's not my fault you failed the legal exams needed to don the robe.
Yeah. It was that whole part, the Judge Dredd part of the exam where you have to like just shoot the special gun. I just couldn't bring myself to do it, and so I couldn't become a judge in this mega city we are in.
You almost said you couldn't become a Jedi. You were so close.
So do we know what's going on with spells? It's like somewhat like lots of them were removed or something. What was going on there?
Well, some of them are different. Counterspell is a little nerfed, I think. Also, can we talk about invisible and hiding? I think it's kind of silly. Like if you hide, you get the invisible condition. It's like, what? Why wouldn't you just hide? Like,
get the hidden
happening?
Condition.
I don't know. I don't know why they did it that way. I think it's kind of silly. That was one of the things that I found very kind of weird. Like, sorry. So why is it different? Like, why is it the same? Why is invisibility the same as me ducking behind a bookcase?
Okay, this is to try and simplify things, because there was two, like, people misconstrued invisibility a lot in 5e, and I think that this is an attempt to try and just kind of make things simpler. So the exact phrasing here for hide in the new rules, or quote unquote new rules, with the hide action, you try to conceal yourself. To do so, you must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity stealth check while you're heavily obscured or behind three quarters cover or total cover, and you must be out of an enemy's line of sight. If you can see a creature, you can discern whether it can see you. Now, out the gate, I'll say if you're behind total cover, you already can't be seen, so you have the same thing as the invisible condition, which reads quite plainly, while you have the invisible condition, you experience the following. Surprise. If you're invisible, I mean, I would argue that you potentially have the same thing, but you don't, and this is kind of the clarification that's going to happen here. So, invisible condition. While you have the invisible condition, you experience the following effects. Surprise. If you're invisible, when you roll initiative, you have advantage on the roll. Concealed. You aren't affected by any effect that requires this target to be seen unless the effect's creator can somehow see you. Any equipment you are wearing or carrying is also concealed. Attacks affected. Attack rolls against you have disadvantage, and your attack rolls have advantage if a creature can somehow see you. You don't gain this benefit against that creature.
I think it's great that they defined invisibility. I think it's weird that they made hidden equivalent to it. Like, I don't know if it would have been that bad to make a hidden condition, but I mean, as well, you know, like
what would you differentiate it with? Like,
I guess it's sort of like difference? It's sort of just like it just feels like really, I don't know. It just feels like kind of arbitrary. Like, why?
But that's what I'm saying. It is arbitrary to say that there's a difference between being hidden and being
I think being invisible means that you also, if you're like moving around and stuff, I don't know, like it's like if you're right, like if you're it's really weird to try to, it's like a weird semantic game to play, but it's like if you're invisible, it's because of magic, and if you're hidden, it's not because of magic.
Sure, but like it's a I mean, they could have just called it overall hidden.
Yeah.
Like, instead of using the word invisible, they could have just called it overall hidden.
Shade, I think
the judge rolls with Shade.
I'm actually starting to let me just kind of give an example that I think Franco might be talking about too, where it's sort of like if you are invisible but you have true sight or something, you can see through a magical invisibility, but if you're hiding behind a rock, that doesn't give you
so something like that.
You know what I mean?
Thank you, Bailiff.
Right.
Okay, back to the box. Sorry, guys.
but that's the thing is, like, and it already kind of clarifies this in the condition that you have invisibility against a particular creature. Like, there are creatures who may not. So, like, if you are behind a wall, behind total cover, you can't be targeted. Like, all it literally says for cover is it provides a degree of protection to a target behind it. There are 3 degrees of cover, each of which provides benefit to a target. Half cover is a +2 bonus to AC and Dex saves. 3/4 is +5 bonus to AC and Dex saves. And total cover means you can't be targeted directly. If behind more than 1 degree of cover, a target benefits only from the most protective degree. Now, the point here is that you could be behind. If I know someone's behind a wall, I can't see them. That's the important thing. They are, to be very literal, invisible. They are not.
Wait,
visible.
but sorry. So if I know somebody's behind a wall, meaning that they failed their stealth check to become invisible, that means that they're
right.
The only thing that means is that they're behind cover, and so true sight means that you don't know that you both don't know that person's there because they successfully took the stealth action to hide behind this thing, and you can't target them because they're behind full cover.
Right. That's what the cover really is all that's coming in here. I'm saying if they successfully hid and I no longer know behind. I'm sorry, I misspoke earlier. If I no longer am really aware that they're behind the wall, not only can I not target them, but I would have no reason to even believe that I could potentially target them because they are fully invisible to me.
The prosecution withdrawals.
Again, I think. I do think I agree with you that like it's weird and they could have just called it hidden and really, I mean, because invisibility is a spell, it gives you the hidden condition.
Yeah,
done.
Yeah. Or just like have a section that's magical invisibility versus regular invisibility or something. But
yeah,
anyway.
But I think that gets kind of back into the issues that they were having.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's a sticky wicket. But
that does bring us continue with the magic spells, and yeah, counter spells different. I think there was a weird thing with that we were talking about previously with Armor of Agathis that you could benefit from the. Any temporary hit points versus it just being the hit points from Armor of Agathis, and it's like
you can build sort of like a berserker warlock essentially, which is interesting.
Armor of Agathis, if you have Armor of Agathis on, it gives you temporary hit points equal to whatever, like it might be like 5 temporary hit points. If a creature hits you,
it is.
It scales depending on how you upcast it, right? So you can get up to like 25 at 5th level. Let's say, for example, every time somebody hits you while you have those temporary hit points for Armor of Agathis in the 2014 version, every time you get hit, the creature hitting you takes 25 damage. If you cast it at 5th level, if you have to 25, even while you have like when you're down to like your very last temporary hit point. Yeah,
1 hit point.
Yeah. In the rewrite in 2024, what it does is it lets that continue with any source of temporary hit points. So if you lose all of those hit points from Armor of Agathis, as long as the duration is still going, which I think the duration's like 8 hours or something like that.
Or until you don't have any hit point. All right, I think that it does still go away once you lose temporary hit points to 0.
I just think some of the changes, basically overall, this is like an example of, I think it makes it a little bit harder to GM because some of these spells are more powerful. Some of these player characters are going to be more powerful.
I can't wait to run just like a pain-loving masochist warlock who's like, yeah, hurt me.
So like to me, this is interesting because like that kind of stuff is more of the crunch, and that is an ad that I like. And you know, to that point we were making earlier about that I was trying to say earlier, we don't really have a lot of monster stats. We do have, of course, the small amount of monsters in the player handbook currently, and looking at those, they don't look especially changed, generally speaking, but more beefy monsters may be more terrifying. We don't know. That's to come. Other things that I will say that you may have heard about with regards to spells, Nick, because I know we have been sort of not talking about a lot about this outside of the podcast, is for a minute they said that essentially if you have any spells that were from the 2014 handbook or the 2014 free rules or whatever, oh well, you don't get them anymore. If you're on D&D Beyond, they're just gone. They walked that back very quickly, and I will say personally, it's been interesting because if you take a background that is from I don't know, Tasha's, for example, Cauldron of Everything, that might have spells associated with the background because it has a feat, and that feat may have some spells associated or something like that. Or if you're using a species that's from one of the other books, like Spelljammer, you can still do that and play with the 2024 rules, and it will have legacy next to the spell. that's old. But all the other spells that you will take for your class and stuff will be the new 2024 spells. And I think that is a perfectly fine change. As far as other big spell changes, a lot of them to me were just simplified language, kind of rephrasing a few things. Counterspell, as Franco said, did drastically get cut though. And that is great to me. Because if we want to talk about trying to make the player characters a little more weak, a little more killable, taking away stuff like counterspell is a huge step. It's still there, but it's just not nearly as impactful as it was previously.
Yeah. All right, we're a little going long, so why don't we just do like really quick couple sentence what you might be like apprehensive about, Franco, and then same with you, Shade, things that in this cursory glance, things that have gotten you really excited and looking forward to the new edition. So Franco, anything that you're feeling super apprehensive or something that you're like, this feels weird, I'm nervous about it.
Well, your bailiff, I do declare, I reckon that this won't have any effect on me at all because I'm not going to be using these rules. And my only concern, I think, is just like, I guess like a general sort of concern for people trying to pick up D&D, and then like the same sort of concern I had for 5e originally, and then sort of like the lack of playtesting that was pretty apparent from the fact that did you play test it? Like, like we had like kind of like 6 months or a year or something to play test some of the rules or whatever. I think that's one of my main concerns about it in general. Is just like, how does it hit the table for people? But it's not going to affect me in any kind of way. And yielding my time.
Shade?
I am excited about things like the really promotion of feats. That I have been giving usually a free feat out at level 1 as a pretty common thing for me, and that's just codified now, and feats are really nice. Also, epic boons are actually a thing for real now. Instead of being just something relegated to the Dungeon Master guide, they are front and center, and if you hit level 19, you get an epic boon. Amazing. I love that. We also have multi-classing is just kind of a fixed rule now, so it's no longer because it's technically an optional rule back in the day. Now it's just part of the game. I like that. And
exhaustion's pretty tight.
Exhaustion's really cool. Generally speaking, I think that this will bring a lot of people into a nice, easy mode of play.
I got some thoughts. All
right, Judge, close us out.
I've been skimming the book. I figured out how to look at it. And I have to say that if you're already playing 5th edition, you don't need these rules. They're so the same. But if you're just starting, then go ahead. Because the little tweaks, you'd be hard pressed to actually like find them. So if you're starting out, you get the new 2024 rules. If you've already been playing, you're already playing with these rules anyway, so you're fine.
Kind of, yeah.
Updating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So many of these are codified versions of house rules that people have already been playing with.
Yeah.
Like some of the, like how invisibility, like the invisible condition that we were talking about. I read something that said like, this is how everyone thought that invisible worked.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll definitely return to this topic. Your Honor, you want to gavel us out?
I'm gonna fire you. Is what I'm going to do.
Wow.
Oh no! I guess I'll have to go back.
He's appointed by the Commonwealth.
I guess I'll go back to my old job.
hosting the Tabletop Podcast, which you can find anywhere that you get podcasts. You can also go to tabletopppod.com if you want to get in contact with us. There's a contact form right on that first page. If you'd like us to continue doing what we do, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/tabletop. And we love you, and thank you so much for listening to us. Review us, rate us high, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Tabletop. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Wow, what a dismount.